I'll edit it later on.
All right.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And hey, Emily,
Right.
great to
Good
see you here
morning.
as well. Hello. Nice. Hi, good. This presentation will be done sitting down, like a little bit different comparison to the previous one, because this is really leaning into the freedom part comparison to doing all of the things. So that will be very interesting as well. And we're going to start, let's give it another 4 minutes. Jason, is that all right with you?
Yep. Perfectly good with me.
Really amazing. That kind of give everyone the space to come in. All right. And kind of let us off jumping into it. Um, I really want to lean more within this particular website in mindfulness. That's partially why I've been sitting down because I really want to share with you guys some golden tips and tricks how I've mastered to reduce my workload from 40 hours to 4 hours and to actually be in control of all of my stuff. Let us jump into the presentation. Let's see where we end up. And I really want to lean into yeah, making it fun and making it relaxed. Jason, are you able to put the sharing on? Okay, now I see it. Thank you.
Yep.
That's really great. And if I'm correct, then you're currently seeing it. All right. Like action management. What I notice, what I've been told in the past, that you need to manage your time. And in such a way that I found it very difficult to actually do that because I was still felt limited within the restraints of time. So needing to wake up at 7, like having my breakfast until 8, between 8 and 9 actually traveling, starting my workday from 9 to 5, something like that. And what I noticed is that I felt restricted in the bounds of time. Like within this container, we are more leaning into the mindfulness, like the life book sequence and the spiritual journey that we are on. And what I was noticing is managing my time was withholding me from actually growing to actually get to that next step. And for me, the next step itself is freedom, like complete freedom into location, financial, and even time freedom, so that you don't need to be somewhere specifically anymore. And action management has given me so much around that. And in like a personal journey, like now I got myself a day job again. And I felt like that I was pushed into the rush into like you need to perform and do quicker and do faster things, which was withholding me from actually growing. So that was a very interesting like the dynamic that I've gone through again. All right. Everyone already had my introduction except Rodolfo. Um, I really hope that I pronounced it correctly. Like my name is timgoertz. I have a background in electrical engineering. I'm pretty much a visionary, whatever that means. Like I have conversations with Jason sometimes, like the potential amazing growth that I'm thinking the world is heading to. Um, I'm more into the Rousseau mindset, so actually believing that humanity is good and us helping each other as much as we can. So that's really my baseline, like me helping as many people as I can with the ideas that I have. I feel like that I'm focused, like this is my goal, this is what I'm striving for, like so focused in such a way that people find it intimidating sometimes. Um, but that is how I would describe myself and driven. because I have collected a couple of knowledge that I barely see happening with other people, and I'm shouting my knowledge off of the roofs for people like, hey, like this would be the solution. Like we don't need to be so stressed and so limited and so time bound in a certain way. Um, since this is the third webinar, I'm doing then weekly webinars on focus. So that's really the business part, how to get leads, what you offer, and all of that stuff. The AIM project, action, information, and insight management, which is a personal acknowledgement system for you to externalize your thoughts, your ideas, your vision, your information, and then you can look at it from your third person perspective. So later a little bit more upon that one. And the last one is I2EQ, is making the shift from the intellectual being that we have identified ourselves with so often, like you need to be smart, and then shifting that to the emotional being that we are. So which is kind of the vibrational state that we are. So that includes levels like mastering intuition. If you are interested in a little bit more of that information, what it is, what it's about, and all of that stuff, like feel free to watch my website because I just share as much as I can to make it available for as many people as I can. So that's me, and of course, like part of Mind Valley storyline as well. Great. I want to talk to you a little bit about the reason why I'm so interested, so passionate about action management. Because, like, in all fairness, like now we're with 6 people, and it's me talking about your to-do list, like your action list. Like, what's that about? Like, it's already interesting that you're here to listen to me talk. So, partially, thank you very much. And at the same time, I want to emphasize what makes me driven so much about this maybe mundane subject. Because everyone's like, oh, just write a to-do list and then it's done. But in practice, it seems not to be as easy as we perhaps think it is. Like, I was missing appointments. Like, I made an appointment with someone and then I forgot to put it in my calendar in a certain way, or it was filled up. Like, I often said yes to an appointment, to a task, to a task basically, because an appointment is also a task. And I missed it because I didn't knew how to manage my actions properly, how to manage my calendar properly. And that made me, like we're later on a little bit later upon that, but my word wasn't my bound. So when I actually said something, it was always a little bit guessing, like, okay, would you actually show up? Like, I don't know. So my credibility, my reputation was actually damaged because of that. And missed appointments and missed deadlines are part of that. And I see that quite often with so many organizations, like especially like the government, like you sending a mail to someone and then they're not responding. Like it's kind of annoying and we're losing connection because we're not actually responding to each other anymore. We're becoming invisible in a certain way. So all of that layer, all of that web is included in this action management system. Because everyone mentioned to me like I needed to manage my time, I started doing time boxing because everyone says like, hey, do time boxing. Reserve 1 hour for building your webinar or building this, building that, building this, or doing this, like working out and all of that stuff. And I felt like that I became a prisoner of my own calendar. Like I actually like handed someone the keys, like here's the control over my life. Even though I actually created it, but it still felt restrained because my ideal life now is maybe a little bit different in 2 days because my future version is different compared to how I am right now. So time boxing made me feel like I needed to perform or do, or like it was withholding me into being the present version of me right now. So that's also like I noticed that time boxing really wasn't working for me. But I'm like, but then what? Like, how do actually effective people manage all of their busy schedule? I'm like, do they micromanage every 5 minutes, every this, every that? I'm like, and especially if you're seeing, um, like I know that Vision is doing time boxing. Like if it works for him, really great. But for me, the goal itself is to have freedom. And that's something very interesting, deeper layer inside of that one. All right. And like another journey, like my mailbox became very, very full, like 600 mails, 700 mails, 800 mails. And I'm like, maybe I've missed something. Like maybe somewhere I missed a bill, an appointment, a notification, like something somewhere. Like I felt like I was having loose ends everywhere. My WhatsApp list, my mailbox, my notifications everywhere. And I'm like, how can I structure this in such a way that I'm back in control again? Like that I'm back in control of my own life. So like I mentioned, like a little bit too many notifications. That could be social media, but also WhatsApp. Also all of the different things that we capture information, get notifications from, in such a way that I started waking up from stress, or maybe even worse, not being able to sleep at the beginning of the night. So it actually made me like, instead of 8 hours, 6 hours, 5 hours, 4 hours. Sometimes it brought me to such a stress level that I couldn't sleep anymore. Because I was mulling, I was stressing. I need to do, let me wake up because, like within time boxing, every hour that you have extra, then you feel like, then I can still work. Maybe it's a little workaholic, so maybe that's a topic for another time. Um, but I really felt stress in that time, which really manifested itself into illnesses. This is something that I see quite often, by the way, which resulted me into working harder, faster, like really speeding up my whole process without actually we're here. And that was the reason, actually. And I started researching, like how do most effective people do this stuff? This was also in the same journey where I was learning how to speak that period. And this was kind of the starting point. Like oh, sorry, it's not actually inspiration, but this is the how to. There is a book of David Allen, and he talks about getting things done. He analyzed a lot of businesses. He's already 40 years in the realm. He analyzed a lot of businesses and highly effective people, and he noticed that there are 5 different kinds of actions. Um, and that underlying idea is you need to manage your actions and do not manage your time. And I personally added the goal of freedom, because that's the whole mindfulness state underneath that. Like that's a spiritual journey. Like it's not the idea to do more, but it's the idea to live your ideal life in a certain way. And you need to do certain things to make that happen instead of trying to manage your time instead of that one. So getting things done is a really highly recommended thing if you're struggling with actions, information, sorry, actions, mailbox, appointments, that kind of things. And then atomic habits. I've got it, yeah, I've got it back there as well. Like atomic habits is the 1% improvement idea. Often we want to find the golden egg that switches everything, that improves everything, like just like that. And if it's not working, then we're keeping search. We're searching for the next golden egg and the next golden egg and the next golden egg. And especially if you are experiencing, um, how to say this, the the the, the need of, um, like it's a little bit of like I can't manage this just yet, so I need to learn more. Like it's coming from a place of not being enoughness. It's quite big currently in the world, and you're searching for new ideas and new stuff, and you feel like that you need to perform based on that journey. So 1% rule, like really slow down to speed up. I quite often say that within my coaching, within my conversations that I have with people, slow down to speed up. The reason why I'm so passionate about action management is because this was really the first layer of my spiritual journey. Like, what an amazing 2 years it has been, with all of its ups and downs and realizations and traumas and all of that combined into one. I already talked a little bit about that, like your word becomes your bound. I noticed it in the past is that I was sometimes saying stuff that I didn't actually do. And I felt bad as a result. Like I felt judged. And in that in that time frame within like really getting things done, I decided my word becomes my bound. Like I'm not flawless. I'm still not. But it's partially like forgiving yourself in such way and knowing how to deal with certain things. If I actually say like, yeah, I'll come back to you next week, then actually doing that all of the time. Because then you're building your reputation and people find you then a trustworthy person. Breathing, like slowly breathing. Um, yeah, so word becomes your bound is a very big one. And then there was a second thing, which was Sadhguru's mindset of you are not your body and you are not even your mind. And that was such an interesting one that I experienced. As in, hey, if I am not my mind, my memory of all of the actions that I need to do, then what I need to do is to externalize every action that I have and organize it externally so I can be more in the present state of now. And that was really a game changer for me. And a lot of the people try to externalize their actions, like writing it down in the to-do list. And then it does help for most people to do that. But the question is then, okay, what if you have a to-do list? How to organize it further? Like what's a project? What's an action? What's an habit that you want to build? And quite a lot of people try to combine it into one list. And within this action management system, you can see different layers beneath that. I already talked about that a little bit, the experiencing time in the present moment. Like currently, I do have my day job, and I've got a lot of stuff actually happening there. And my recording stopped. Oh, that's too bad. My iPhone recording, Jason. Um, experiencing time as the present moment. Like right now, I'm just here. Like I don't fill my mind up with all of the actions that are like in my waiting list, like all of the stuff that I need to do. Like I'm living more in the present moment as a result out of action management. It's so liberating because like I trust my system. And that's so good. That's so nice. That's such a nice way to live. Which results into slowing down to speed up. We have almost been taught, almost, like by society, by the educational system. Like you need to perform, you need to do more and faster and like create something. But at the same time, like if we actually slow down, like the capabilities of your brain is way higher comparison to what we think it is. And if we really lean into that subject and slowing down to speed up massively changes your impact upon the world. Like really, like I'm talking now with the most amazing people and I'm like, holy smokes, can I actually like speak to those people? And I don't feel embarrassed anymore. Like really a high level of individuals. Like it's so amazing. And that's partially because of this. All right.
Hey, Tim.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, right before we go to that side, if you wouldn't mind hopping back one slide, we had some questions.
hmm This one, spiritual journey.
Yep. Yep. Perfect. Could you describe a little bit more what you mean by your word becomes your bound? Are are you referring to your bond, the boundaries? What's the bound?
Ah, like maybe I misspelled then the word. I don't know. Like the bound is actually like the agreement that I've made with you, Jason.
Okay,
Like if we agreed upon, hey, tomorrow we will meet up somewhere, then we made an agreement with the two of us.
perfect.
Does that clarify enough?
Yep. Yeah. So I think it is just a typo there. The your word becomes your bond with that person, your agreement with that person
Ah, so it's without the you.
without the you. Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. Then we'll improve upon that one.
That was we also had a question. Oh, had another question there, my friend. In regards to the time or the presence, there was a question or a thought put in there about staying in the present moment, but time still flying by. Like, could you speak to that a little bit?
Well, the experience of time flying by is like your interpretation upon like the time.
Mhm.
Like what I noticed, if I can tune into my own mind, in my own reality, then it's like within 20 seconds, I can go over so many possible storylines or experiences. And then it's like, oh wow, this was an amazing journey. Like within that 20 seconds gap, you can experience so many things. And especially like I had it in the past where I was very negative and I was experiencing those negative things. And the more positive that your experience is, the more like that time kind of freezes. And it's not actually that it freezes, but like the capabilities of your brain can give you so many more possibilities comparison to what we think time is. That kind of answers the question.
I think it begins to answer the question, and then of course you can continue to go deeper into that. So time in that regard is much more based on our perception of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a very interesting one because we've been taught like we are the observers of the time. So
Mhm.
we are almost slaves of the time itself. But time is of course like how much present that you are and how much that you see. Like the level of focus that I described at the beginning is a result of me choosing my own focus. And you being so intentional with a particular hour or particular 5 minutes of watching something. Like, hey, I experienced so many layers and so many depths as a result out of that one. So it's, but this is like very vague almost, and at the same time so amazing to experience. So this is, how does that lady, the man of Reagan from Mind Valley?
Reagan?
Yep. Reagan, like she also talks about manifestation and also like reducing the time period in a certain way, like time collapsing.
Yeah.
And I think this action management system and the AIM system is a method so you can learn to do that. without it being like a storyline that you need to like follow. Like just do time collapsing. And this is actually the way how to do that into that journey. So that's my experience at least.
Yeah, excellent. Can't wait to hear more.
Good. This slide is done. I'm not seeing the question, so let me know.
You're good. Yep, you're good.
So action or aim by as a concept. Like I talked a little bit about Sadhguru, like you are not your mind and you are not even your body. And that made me think, like the first starting point was to externalize every action that I have to the outside world. So I could look at it from the perspective as a viewer without it identifying with all of those actions. But it went further. Like I noticed something else, like, oh, there's a difference between like information and an action. So I split those two things down. And for me, like the information is something that in the engineering world, it's quite often said like raw data. Like when you need to be there, what's the address of the location, who will you speak with, like what's the minutes of meeting with that person, or all of the like the data, like raw data that you need to store somewhere. It's not actually an action, but it is data. So externalize that part. And a new idea kind of popped in, like idea management or insight management. As there is an idea, like I've heard this from Jordan Peterson, but I think that Jordan Peterson got it from Carl Jung, and it talks about people don't have ideas, but ideas have people. And that still gives me like shivers, as in, oh, ideas have people. So that made me think about which idea is currently having me. So that was the starting point of insight management upon a certain like framework, the Zettelkasten system. And then I started plotting down like, what do I currently believe? Like, what's my current insight? What do I currently believe the reality actually is? Like the concept of time, that's also just a perception of the time. It's a way different concept comparison to how most people experience that. But I needed to plot it out, externalize it, and like write down how is this connected with other subjects. So I started creating a note, like a note framework, like a star map almost, of ideas that I was having, insights that I was having, and seeing if they are connected. And what I had in the past, I'm an engineer, I'm a very, very practical person. Like I don't see myself as a spiritual person, or at least that was my past belief. And somewhere in between that whole insight management idea was the difference between the whole spiritual mindset and the whole electrical engineering and understanding and like logic. Like you need to prove it, and otherwise it doesn't work. And in a certain way, there was a connection between those two storylines. And I'm like, now it all makes sense. And I'm finding those connections upon what you currently believe, but you don't know why you believe it, or how does it actually make sense, into finding that connection into, hey, now I can actually um, understand the difference and even explain the difference to people. So for me, like a very short insight, for me the difference was David Hawkins with his idea of map of consciousness, that the vibration in the cell actually like correlates with the emotional being that we are. So I was struggling quite rapidly, quite massively with idea between being good and being evil. Like, is humanity good or evil? And then even like a layer deeper was that map of consciousness. And only then everything started to connect. So that is the whole AIM concept. There's a lot of amazing things in there. Okay, let us get back into the action management itself, like how to actually do that. Like the first step is to write down all of the actions that you have, however minimum or however big that they actually are. Like really capture all of the actions that you have, things that you need to do. After you've done that, like this is an ongoing thing. I talk to a lot of people actually having a brain dump. So having a place where you put in all of your data. After you've done that, while you are doing that, like you are going to filter that into these 5 different aspects. The unhindered actions, unhindered must, to be honest. Unhindered must, the hindered must, the maybe and the waiting for, and the time bound. Very shortly, because I do want to have some time for questions as well. The unhindered must and the hindered must. Like the definition of a must is my bond. Do I pronounce it correctly, Jason? Like, like my bond that I have, like I actually agreed something with someone and that actually becomes a must. Like for me, when I want to work out every Tuesday evening, if I only say that for myself, then it's not actually a must action. Because if I don't do that, my repetition doesn't get splintered as a result. Sorry. Doesn't get splintered as a result. But if I said something to someone, but I'm not actually doing it, then my repetition gets weakened. So that's a little bit the definition of a must action. And then the difference between an hindered and an unhindered. Okay, like the word kind of talks about it itself. Is an unhindered action is an action that you could do right now without any limitations. So if you need to pay the bill for the doctor, you actually need to know the amount, know the like the bank that you need to put the money to. You need to know what it is for. Like all of those steps. Like if you're missing one of those steps, then it's actually an action that you can't do just yet. Um, so it could be that you know that you'll have to pay the doctor, but you don't know how much it is just yet. Like the invoice didn't come in just yet. Then it would be written down as, hey, this is actually a hindered action. This is something that will come, but at the moment you can't do it right now. And in that same action, you are adding a notification in your waiting for action, which is I am waiting for the invoice to come in, or I'm waiting for a client to respond back to me. Like this makes sure I had it in the past, like I was sending out emails, but I forgot, like um, I wasn't in control anymore about all of the emails that I send out. Like who am I waiting for to respond? Like I've sent out 20 emails. I was waiting for 20 people, but I was only remembering like 10 of them. And all of the rest were just like, never mind. So I was doing 100%, but I only got 50% response back. So I was losing time. I was not being efficient anymore. And now everyone knows around me, like, okay, if Tim says he will do something, then he'll actually do that. 9% of the time. Like I do have my struggles with my own things. Like let's be realistic about that one. Um, very quickly, like the maybe actions are stuff that would benefit your life, but you didn't agree upon that with someone. Like a lot of the things, if we're actually writing down all of the actions that we have, I notice with the conversations that I had with people, like 70% of them are actually maybe action. And that's releasing so much energy upon your system. Like, yeah, it would be nice, but I don't need to do that. And it's giving you a level of freedom. So that's quite nice there as well. And then adding upon that, like the time bound action. This is, by the way, different than a deadline. A deadline is I need to um, pay the bill before next Friday. So that's a deadline itself. Like that's a must action. That's a deadline. Um, And the time-bound action is you actually have the doctor's appointment on Saturday between 8 and 9. That's an action that you must do within a certain time frame. So that's a little bit different, and I see a lot of people like mixing up that difference, but it's really helpful to make that difference very clear. And the idea that I have with, because I want to do like workshops, webinars, and like courses around this topic, is to list out all of the actions and to actually go through all of that stuff to see what's mixed up. I want to add just a little detail and then we're wrapping up. Write it down first with a verb, especially in the English language. Start with a verb, like this is the action that you actually need to do. Review, pay, visit, could be anything. And write it as if it is for your personal assistant. Because you as an individual are different compared to you as an individual in 10 days. Like your life continues, you'll see new insight, you'll learn new things. And the understanding that you had about action at this time was different compared to how you perceive it in the future. So write it down as if someone else will do that. So that's a little bit side note. And I do notice that I didn't change my last copy here. I'm so sorry. But this is the end of the presentation, the webinar. And Jason, are there any questions popping up?
Yeah,
Or
we had a
does it more?
question in regards to the time bounds and the must-to-do act or the must-do actions. So could there be an overlap, let's say a doctor's appointment? Is that both a must-do and a time bound?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
What you can do within the time-bound actions, so your calendar itself, you can have the appointments itself, so that's basically a must action, and then you have a maybe action as well in your calendar. So then it could be that you're seeing this webinar, like for this one, like next week, the same time, we do have a next appointment coming up, like a next webinar coming up. You can write it down in your calendar and say, hey, this is a maybe action. It would be fun to join in, but I don't need to because I didn't agree upon that with Tim. And then until you actually said that to me or someone else, like I'll actually be there, then you can change that maybe action into a must action within your
Mhm.
calendar. Because your word becomes your bounds to whomever you say it to.
And then do you believe that most actions probably fall under the maybe action
Yeah,
category?
much
Okay.
more than we often realize.
Yeah.
Because we want so much, but almost everything is a maybe.
Hmm.
And that's so freeing to experience. Like I had a client, it's like a top-notch like sales guy. You're like, I'm able to sleep for 1 hour longer because I'm not waking up from the stress like, I need to call this guy.
Hmm.
Like such an amazing journey. He was actually sleeping tighter and he was feeling healthier as a result. How much is that worth? So yeah. If there aren't any questions, and is my internet that isn't amazing?
Yeah, sadly, yeah, you've
Oh,
been freezing a little bit here and there, but for the
okay.
most part, it's been good. It's been all right. Tim, is there a specific software that you use for the brain dump for the system, which I know that you do?
I do, yeah. Yes, I do. I have a quite elaborate software package called Notion. And Notion is an Excel and table and Paint and everything kind of combined into one. And my advice is, especially with like new learners, is to really slow down to speed up. So some people don't like to actually use digital software. Like, no worries, get yourself a book, write down unhindered, like write down all of the actions that you have on unhindered. Different thing is hindered, like follow it there. Like really slow it down so you can do this with Google Task. Just make 5 different lists, like put it in there. Because the idea is to really slow everything down in such a way that you can master the method first and then start improving upon that. Like, hey, this current software is not making me like delete stuff easily because like paper is like it's limited. Like, okay, let us change into something digital that you can actually delete. I want to combine that into a project. Okay, maybe then Google Calendar isn't good enough anymore. Maybe then you need to integrate into Excel or Notion or some other database. Like I just saw Trello somewhere in the comments. Like Trello is also an amazing place for that. Trello also has its limits. But when I'm seeing someone using Trello for their to-do list, like really great. Keep doing that and really learn the method first until you notice by yourself, like, hey, I'm pushing the boundaries like now. I would like to see this extra link or combining that with a contact person. Or it could be so many things. But I'm currently in that state of Notion, but it isn't recommended at the beginning. Like Notion has a very high learning curve. So that's something like be careful with starting with Notion. That is kind of the underlying one.
So when you do
Um,
your brain dump, would you write everything out first and then categorize it into the 5 categories? Or do you try to have all the 5 categories open and as you're brain dumping, put it right into the specific category right away?
um, the the first action. So actually like capturing the data first, and it could be like in a meeting yesterday. I had an amazing conversation with someone. So what I did in my brain dump, like I wrote down his name with the action, like connect with him on LinkedIn. Like just capture that moment in that present time. So later on, you'll notice it could be like in my case, like I'm actually not able to find this guy, but this actually becomes an unhindered must because I actually said that I would connect with him, but I can't just yet. So now my first action is find out what his last name is or how to connect with this guy. Um, but that makes me in control over, yeah, brain dumping it first, like capture first, and then organize it. Because your creative mind is different compared to like your logical mind.
Excellent. Would you have a way to show this? I don't know if you only have it in Notion, so that might be a little bit overwhelming, but there was a question if there were any examples that you could show of maybe a light version for everyone and your
Uh,
fuller version.
Let me see if I can share the lighter version.
I mean, and you did describe it per se, the latest version would just be to have pages of a notebook and have each
Yes,
page designated for a category and start off with the beginning, just a complete brain dump, and then break that apart. But
yes,
digitally,
correct. Like the first action would be like what we said, like on paper. That would be the first basic one. And the second layer would be something like the Google Calendar. And within Google Calendar, you have on the computer app at least, you have here on the right side 2 options, as in switch calendar. I won't show you that one because there are some names there. But also the option on switch to tasks. And within switch to task, you have the option to create new lists. And what I see a lot of people doing is that they have like a work list, school list, workout list, different like um, yeah, well, subjects. And the idea is to convert that into categories. Like what's the function of this action? And then you can create like new lists, have hindered, unhindered, maybe, and waiting for. And then your time bound will be in your calendar itself. So this is like a little bit the next step. And then you can maybe even move to Trello afterwards or something else.
Yeah, that was very helpful seeing that. Um, there was mention that they didn't even know that existed in Google Calendar. So,
It's almost only a couple of months old, so it's
oh,
it's
really? Okay, that is
understandable.
really
Yeah,
new.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like they previously had it on a different like AXA, like an Excel program, but now they combined that, so it's
excellent.
pretty good now.
Yeah, yeah, I believe that brings us up to date
Really
on
amazing.
the questions. Yeah, so
Yeah, like maybe share the form,
yep,
Jason, if you have that one. Like I would really appreciate if you like fill in the form. Um, just as like a learning curve for me and Jason how to actually improve it. Like is it actually nicer to see me sitting down and talk a little bit longer, deeper upon the impact that it had upon me? Because the previous two were a little bit more presentation like, and this is more me like. So that's a little bit the difference. Yeah, and feel free if you want to learn a little bit more. I'll type out the website itself. goertz.com/aim. And there's a lot more information upon that one, including instructions on how to actually set that up and like videos, instructions, and all of that stuff. And I'm really leaning into value first. And in the future, maybe Jason and I, maybe me alone with someone else, let's see, to actually create an workshop around that to experience for you guys that level of action management and to externalize your thoughts and your actions. So that's the idea. Yeah. And yeah, like if there are questions, feel free to reach out. Like I'm really available. And then I really want to thank you for all of your presence and questions. And yeah, is there something that I forgot, Jason, for now?
nope, nope. You were just want to let you know you were getting hearts and some thumbs up there. So everyone really seemed to get some value and appreciated the times.
Thank you so much. And let's slowly end it off with this one. And then, like what I said, like in the next week we'll have another one. We kind of need to tune into which subject, but feel free to write that down in the insights form as well. Interest form, sorry, not the insight form. And let's create something beautiful. All right, thank you. Then let's end it off with this one.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Have a great one.